The Magnificent Seven. They are the 7 biggest tech stocks in the US, and they are running away with the entire stock market. However, which one is the best? How would you rank them from best to worst, and why? Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, the Magnificent Seven, most of you guys know what these names are. I will go ahead and tell you what they are in this video, but they're not all the same. They don't do all the same things. They have both pros and cons. Which ones are the best and which ones are the worst of this group? That's what we're going to look at. As I'm looking at this, I am not just looking at performance. That's easy to do. You can just sort them from who's making the most to who's making the least. But I'm more so looking at competition, and I'm looking into the future. Which one of these companies has a built-in advantage that's unlikely to waver over the next 5 or even 10 years? Now, we do know that 10 years is a very long time, right? And we do know also that companies do tend to switch places. Remember, Apple right now is known as the world's most valuable company. Before Apple, it was Exxon, right? But it took 10 or 15 years before that started to change guard. So let's go ahead and start with the list. And I'll start here at the bottom with number 7. Number 7 is Meta. Now, year to date, at the time I'm doing this video, Meta is up 173%, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous because the stock market as a whole is up about 15% or so. And this one is doing more than 10 times that amount, just one stock here. And the reason why Meta is in the final position here is, yes, it is one of the best performers of the list. It's obviously one of the best performers all year. But what do they do? How are they doing it? And what is their business, right? As you know, they primarily make a lot of their money off of advertising, but they don't own the rail. And when I say that, I mean they don't own the phone or create the phone that you are on Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp. They don't do that. That's Apple. And because Apple controls the rail, they're the ones who can boot Facebook and Meta off of the platform completely, which would absolutely tank their business. We also saw just 2 years ago now how Apple came out and said, look, we're going to institute some new privacy rules so you can't track people. And we started to see Meta suffer because of that. And now they're just now starting to recover. Also, when companies decide not to advertise, Meta doesn't really have that second switch, that second gear for the business to go into. Now, they did start to invest in the metaverse. They do have the Oculus Pro Quest, whatever thing that is trying to get them out of just advertising, but we'll see whether or not that is going to pay off. But they're doing quite well right now, but because they don't really control the market in the way that some of these other companies do, I have them in the final slot. Moving up on the list, number 6 is Amazon. Now, again, these are all great companies, okay? They're all good for a reason. They're the Magnificent Seven for a reason. I'm putting Amazon here, and they are up 69% year to date, which is good, but Amazon is a weird case. Now, you know Amazon for their 2-day shipping via Prime, which has been probably the greatest move they've ever made. They are moving into streaming. They have moved into AI. They do cloud stuff with Amazon Web Services. They do a lot of stuff, which has helped them to become one of the most valuable companies on the face of the earth. Okay, great. However, what it also does is open up new areas for competition, and it is very hard. It is very hard if you are, think of it like, I don't know, an empire or just, you know, a person. It's one thing if you have to fight somebody one-on-one, right? It's a different thing if you have to fight 5 different people in 5 different locations. And that's basically what Amazon is doing, because when they are going in the AI space, they have to go against Microsoft and Google, right? Which is normal for people in tech space. But if they're also going into e-commerce, now you got to fight with Target and Walmart. And then if you're going in the streaming space, now you got to fight against Disney. And you have to do all these things all at the same time. And again, it makes it super difficult. Now, the good thing is you got different teams. You are a large employer, and you can kind of spread yourself out just a bit. But again, it's very, very difficult to manage all these things at the same time. If you are a historian, then you might remember how General Electric used to do this. And if I remember correctly, at one point General Electric owned NBC. They were so big that they were now in communications, and they were doing chemicals and engineering and everything under the sun at the same time, and eventually got to a point where they had to break up and split off and sell off all of those businesses to be successful. I can't tell you that Amazon is going to go that exact same route, but I can tell you that they are expanding, and at some point they do need to organize and make sure that things are going to go in the right direction for the foreseeable future, which so far they have done. However, in the last 3 years, 2023 has been an outlier, because if you remember and you've seen these videos, 2021 and 2022 for Amazon wasn't all that great. They started to falter primarily because of some of the way they were spending their money, and how they overhired during that season. Next on the list here is Microsoft. Now, as you know, Microsoft is one of my favorite companies, and we know what Microsoft has done and what they have been over the last 30 to 35 years at this point. Not only do they do operating systems and the computers, they are also in the cloud space. They also have some defensive contract money, which has really helped to keep them afloat. And don't forget, they're also in gaming, which is a big division through their Xbox console, and then they're going through some stuff for the acquisition with Activision/Blizzard. So that is something that's interesting as well. I like them because they are diversified, and I would say all of their products make more sense than some of the jumbled strategy of Amazon. Again, that's not shade towards Amazon. These are the 7 best companies out there. Okay, so you're really splitting hairs here, but all the stuff that Microsoft does, you can see it's computers, technology, and that's it. Whereas Amazon does physical services, Whole Foods, iRobot, streaming, movies. Like, it's a whole lot of different things, which again, they do have their pros and their cons. But Microsoft comes in at number 5 on our list. Next here is number 4, and that's Tesla. Tesla is up about 81% so far this year. Now, Tesla is here because, one, we know where the electrification of cars has been, right? And what I am just slightly concerned about is the fact that the market share that they have now, whatever it is not going to get larger. Okay, that we know. Okay, now they are in the lead. It will be probably decades before Ford, GM, Rivian, and everybody else catches up to them, but this is it. Right, the further we go towards electrification and the more common they become, the more chargers that they build, that is going to shrink. Let's say that, and I don't know the exact number of what the market share for Tesla is right now, but let's say that it is 90%. Okay, let's say it's 95%. That's not going to stay there forever. That doesn't mean it's going to be 2%. That doesn't mean that it's going to be 50, but at some point, it is going to shrink, and it has shrunk, and it's one of the reasons why they have started to reduce the price level for their cars, because they have greater competition. Now, all of that said, because Ford and GM and Rivian and others said that they're going to start using Tesla charging networks and charging stations, Tesla's still in the lead here. Okay, they have more control over their market. I would argue more than what Amazon has over theirs, because we know Walmart and Target are out there, as well as every other space, Wish and all these other sites that can cut into Amazon's business. They have a lot more competition. Tesla has competition, but they're just so far ahead that it's going to take, in my view, decades for this to even be a fair fight between Tesla and some of these other competitors. But they come in on the list at number 4. Moving up is number 3. That is Nvidia. Nvidia is up 232%. I feel like I gotta say it in that voice every single time, because it is a ridiculous number, especially from where we came last year. Now, thankfully, because I'm not perfect, but thankfully I held on. I just held. Now, I didn't do that for Meta. Perhaps I should, right? But we've already talked about that. But I did hold on to Nvidia. I kept buying, and I talked about it when I was doing it as well. But again, they're up 232% so far this year. We think, and I think we as a society, we know that electronics are not going to go anywhere. Okay, now the caveat here is Nvidia does have more competition in different areas. I could say Taiwan Semiconductor. I could say Apple to a degree. I could say Intel, which is surprisingly doing well right now. That's a company we talked about earlier, and they weren't doing well, but things have changed for Intel. So, because they are one of the most powerful chip companies out there and one of the most valuable companies on the face of the earth, it is one that I think has a bit more of an advantage that other companies just don't have. Right now, again, they do have more competition than some of these others, but I think they have a very, very long track record of really smashing the stock market left and right. Just go look at the last 5 years or last 10 years and see how far off the chart Nvidia has been. Okay, so while this isn't just a solely performance only video, Their CEO has done well. They have the track record, and the world is only going to continue to move more towards AI, more towards technology, and to power that, you are going to need NVIDIA at the center of that entire conversation. Number 2 on the list is Apple. Now, Apple has been in the news because they have slowed down in terms of sales. I could argue they haven't had any innovative products since the iPad, maybe, and that was several years ago. Like, they just keep releasing the exact same phones and forcing you to change chargers every now and then. It's really not exciting from a product perspective. However, they have moved more so in the services space, and that is where they're making a lot of their money. They also do advertising, even though you don't necessarily notice it. But when you go into the App Store and you see those sponsored apps at the very top, companies do pay a healthy sum to do that. Apple Pay is also contributing to Apple's bottom line because every time you use it, Apple is getting paid. There are some state contracts that they're using as well for some states to use their driver's license and have that through Apple Wallet. That's another way they get paid. Streaming services as well, Apple Cloud, and you can kind of see how things have been built around the iPhone in and of itself. I also lied. I apologize. I said the most recent innovation they had was the iPad. I actually think it's the Apple Watch came after that, and that's probably the last like really big innovation. Outside of that, they just keep remaking the exact same thing. However, the thing that really sets them apart, perhaps a little bit more than others, is the fact that once you're in that system, it's extremely difficult to get out of. You get a Mac, you get an iPhone, you get an Apple Watch, and you're stuck. And you just continue to do that for all eternity, basically. Now, there are rumors. I haven't really seen any solid evidence, but there are a lot of rumors that are going to move and start to do an Apple Car at some point in the future. I don't know if that's going to happen. Again, we'll see how that plays out. That would make them even more powerful in my view. But Apple isn't known for making cars, so we'll see that when and if it occurs. But right now, I have them in the number 2 slot, which leaves who and why, right? This one is Alphabet, also known as Google, and the reason here is because they control the search market. Now, there was a bit of consternation, there was a bit of conflict between what we thought ChatGPT was going to be compared to how far we thought Google was in their Bard AI. Now, I would argue that Bard is much more useful, but honestly, do you see that many people still using ChatGPT in the exact same way? I don't know. I would like to know what you think in the comments. But here's the thing. What are the top 3 most visited sites on the face of the earth? Which ones? Okay, you got Google, you got YouTube, all owned by the exact same, I wasn't gonna say person, but the exact same company. That's why. Because if you are looking for videos other than TikTok, you are going to end up on YouTube in one way or another. If you are searching for things, whether you know it or not, you are most likely going to be steered toward a Google search engine. You got Gmail, you got Google Maps, you have the Android phones as well, which do outnumber iPhone users outside of outside of just the US. Don't forget that, right? They're also in the streaming space with YouTube TV and YouTube Premium and YouTube in and of itself, right? So they have just so many different ways to get paid, and they have their own products as well. I don't really see them going anywhere. And there are some lawsuits. There are really lawsuits for almost any company on this list, including Meta, which is really going through it with the lawsuits. But they just have what I would consider a super dominant foothold on their market. I can argue whether or not Tesla's going to retain the lead and for how long. Who's really taking Google out of this spot? Y'all not binging stuff to get answers to things. That's not what you do. You come to YouTube or you Google it. You're not going to Bing. That's not a thing, really. So for me, it's Alphabet as the main winner and the one that has I would say the biggest advantage and the one that I don't see reducing. If we start to move towards ChatGPT to replace the search engine, I don't know about you, but if you start using Bard, it is a different story because it already connects to Google Docs, it already connects to Google Search, and they are only spinning that thing out even further. And I'm still kind of going through and testing some things. So I think it might be a bit better and is only going to evolve from this point forward. So we will see where that goes in the future. But for me, I would argue that Alphabet is the most powerful and the best company out of the Magnificent Seven. Now, which one though of all of these, I would say this, okay? I'll say this. These are the best stocks, right? The Magnificent Seven. I gave you the ranking, but there's something else out there, and what they're doing to the stock market is the most astounding thing. So in tomorrow's video, I'm actually going to show you how these 7 companies have actually broken the stock market as a whole. Okay, so you want to make sure you stay tuned for that. In the meantime though, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and then make sure you check out these videos right here.